With this photograph, we're going to examine how we can use color balance and curves and blending modes and masking in order to enhance the color and tone. Yet we're going to take things even a little bit further and examine how we can use advanced blending to get even more precise and even better results. And in addition, what I want to do in this movie is examine how we can use some advanced shortcuts so that we can speed up our overall workflow. Well, this is a portrait of one of my good friends, Matt Kloskowski, and this portrait was taken at the Neon Graveyard in Las Vegas. And of course, I was interested in this really vivid and bright background here, so I want to bring out those tones. Well, the first step that we'll take will be to create a color balance adjustment layer. So let's go ahead and click on the color balance icon. Next, let's increase those reds and those yellows, and let's overdo it. Let's add too much color. And the reason we're going to add too much color is because we're going to change the blending mode here. And because we want to be power users, let's change the blending mode by way of a shortcut. First, press the V key to select the Move tool. Next step, on a Mac, press Shift-Option-F. On Windows, press Shift-Alt-F. Alright, well now we have that soft light blending mode, and here you can see our before and after. And we were able to exaggerate that color there because we know that when using that soft light blending mode, it's going to back that off a bit and blend it into the tonal values of the image, and therefore giving us this really nice result. Except one of the things I'm noticing here is that I've lost some detail on the sweatshirt. This is just too dark, so I want to fix that up. The easiest way to fix this is to double click on this layer. That will then open up our layer style dialog. Now down at the bottom, we have the ability to do some advanced blending. Currently, you can see that I'm focusing in on this layer, and here are my blacks. If I click on this slider and bring this up, what we'll see is that it will slowly remove the effect from this area. Yet the problem, of course, is that this is a really jagged and harsh transition where it's affecting the image and where it's not. Well, what we can do is we can soften that transition out by splitting this slider. And the way you split the slider is by holding Option or Alt and then clicking and dragging on this. So Option click and drag on a Mac, Alt click and drag on Windows. And once that's split, we can then move those sliders just so we have just the right transition there and bring in just the exact amount of the effect that we want. The other thing that's great about this is you can click on the preview checkbox to see your before and then now after. Now we have much more detail there. That's going to work a lot better. All right, well, let's go ahead and click OK. Well, the next thing I notice is that while I really like this color in the background and just a couple of the areas, the highlights, it's not really working on the skin. The skin shouldn't be that yellow. So what I want to do is mask the adjustment off on this area. And because this movie is focusing on some advanced tips, let's examine an advanced shortcut for selecting the mask. In order to do that on a Mac, we can press Command \\. On Windows, Control \\. You notice that the mask is now targeted. Now, of course, if you forget that shortcut, you can simply click in the mask to target that as well. The next step is going to be to choose a brush. Let's press the B key to do so. All right, well, now I have the brush and I can hover over the image. Well, one of the things that we want to do with this is we want to paint this effect in at a lower opacity. Well, to change our opacity, we can simply press a number on the keyboard. I'll press 5. That will take this to 50%. And by using these shortcuts, as you can imagine, we can really start to speed up our overall workflow. Well, so far so good. What about our brush? Well, let's say that what we want to do is change our brush size or hardness. One way to do that is to hold down Control Option on a Mac, Control Alt on Windows, and then to click and drag to the left and the right to change the brush size, or up and down in order to change the overall brush hardness or the brush softness. So again, let's go ahead and just change that brush so that we have a nice small brush with a soft edge. Another way to modify your brush is to right-click or control-click, and that will open up the brush dialog. Or of course, you can always make your way up to the options bar, and you can access that same dialog up here as well. Alright, well, I just thought it'd be fun to sneak in some advanced tips just for those of you who are really interested in stepping up your game. Alright, well, now that we have this brush, all that we're going to do is simply paint over this area just to take off a bit of that color effect there on the skin tone and on the hand up there, around by the watch. And that'll just soften things up just a bit there so that that discoloration isn't affecting skin as much. All right, well, the next thing I want to do is I want to really work on the lens right here. I want to bring the light out in that area. So first, I'm going to make a selection of this area. One easy way to do that is with the elliptical marquee tool. So let's go ahead and select that tool by clicking on it, or if we have another one of the tools selected like the rectangular marquee, you can press M and then Shift M to toggle back and forth between those two tools. Well, what's interesting about the elliptical marquee is we can click on a point and drag out, but if we click on the wrong point, we can't select that lens. Well, while holding down your mouse cursor, if you press the spacebar key, you can then reposition this, get it in the right spot, and then keep the mouse button pressed and click and drag, reposition, and then click and drag until you have a nice selection around the area that you want to work on, in this case, the lens. All right, well, what I want to do here is simply create a couple of curves adjustment layers. We'll click on our adjustment layer icon and choose curves. And in this case, I'm simply going to use a blending mode of screen. And if you're curious about what the shortcut is for that blending mode, here it is. Press the V key to select the Move tool, then press Shift Option S on a Mac, Shift Alt S on Windows. Well, now that we have this layer on a screen blending mode, what we're going to do is copy this layer and then choose a different blending mode. Well, to copy or duplicate the layer, we'll press Command or Control J. Next, we want to change the blending mode of this layer to soft light. Here we'll press Shift Option F. That will then take this to soft light. So we have a layer which adds contrast and color, and also a layer which adds brightness. Here's the overall effect, before and then after. Now, if we want to modify this further, we can go into either of these adjustments and we can make tweaks here, brightening this up a little bit more, adding even more contrast. We can do the same thing with that screen layer if we want more brightness in it. And so we can go back and forth until we get the look exactly the way we want it. All right, well, let's examine our overall before and after. You know, the best way to do that is to hold down Option or Alt and then to click on the eye icon. Well, here you have it. Here's our before and then our after. Well, in this movie, as you discovered, we used some similar techniques as we've seen before, yet we took things a little bit further. We looked at how we could use advanced blending and also share with you some really valuable shortcuts. Now, I know that there are some people who love shortcuts and other people who don't. If those shortcuts throw you off a bit, don't worry about it. You don't have to use those shortcuts. Yet if you don't know them, it may be worthwhile to watch this movie again and just take some notes and write down some of those shortcuts, because I think you'll soon find that the more shortcuts that you can integrate into your workflow, the faster you'll be able to work. Now, speed for speed's sake isn't really worth anything, but if you want to get faster for the sake of being more creative, that is worth something. All right, well, in conclusion, I hope that this final movie in this chapter helped expand your skills about how you can enhance color and tone.